I have the distinct pleasure of speaking with Mark Stelzner today, who's founder and managing principal at IA, which does people transformation projects for the Fortune 1000. Mark, thank you so much for joining HR Snacks.
Great to see you, Joel. Thanks for inviting me. Looking forward to today's conversation.
So you're on HR Snacks. I have to start off with the hard-hitting question. Mark, what is your favorite go-to snack during the day?
Ooh. Honestly, I'm an evening snacker, which probably is horrible for you, and I am addicted to ice cream actually. So I will every flavor, every type of ice cream, anywhere I can try it. The house is quiet, everyone's asleep. Guess where Dad is, right? Digging into the freezer. So, but that's probably my go-to of every snack in the world. I just adore ice cream.
I respect that. I get a lot of healthy answers, which I always look at a little skeptically. I'm like, are you really, eating baby carrots during the day? Is that your go-to snack?
Not.
Maybe for some people. I am so excited to have you on because I want to talk about the topic of fads that inhabit the HR tech landscape and HR in general. There's a ton of HR fads that are dominating the space at the moment, like how to incorporate AI into organizations, organizational restructure, work redesign, transforming into skills-based organizations. I want to talk about how HR leaders and companies can navigate, the FOMO that pulls them into wanting to jump into these fads and the common pitfalls and traps that come with those type of transformational efforts. So to start with, I rattled off a couple examples, but I'd like to get your take on what you think are the biggest HR fads that are most prominent at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, we as a people function are very susceptible to fads because we're in the people business. We have the good graces facilities on-premise, off-premise, like we have the good graces of touching all of that by virtue of working in HR. So every fad crosses every HR function's desk almost immediately because either someone brings it to their attention, an analyst declares that this is the new and next, we see it at a conference, or one of our peers in the C-suite, right, comes knocking on our door. What are you doing about? What are you thinking about? And or I need your help with. So just generally, we're overwhelmed and exhausted by the noise in the system, and separating signal, is very, very difficult. So the fads that we see, of course, I can't open an email without 47 cautionary and excited tales about AI. We talk for hours about AI, but AI everywhere, but not all AI is created equal. I think we've rebranded machine learning and robotic process automation. We don't know what Gen AI versus AI is, but face it, some form of intelligent automation is now here, has been here, frankly, for some time. And the question is, what do we do with it? So that's definitely a fad. Total workforce management isn't really a fad, but it's a fact that now HR is having to wrestle with, because after every recession, no one wants to go through the process of having to terminate a huge percentage of their population. So we started depending much more as a percentage of our total FTEs on contract contingent, casual labor. And it's a huge percentage of the total workforce, but HR said, procurement, you own that, right? Because I own sort of FTEs in my box. So the fad is now, what are we doing about total workforce management? And then you take the first fad, which is, does AI have skills? Is AI a person? We saw what happened, with in our industry, which I won't name, just, over the last couple of days, which then leads into skills. And is work really the assembly of dynamic skills? So how do we deconstruct skills? How do we define a skills taxonomy? How do we derive skills versus attested skills? And then how do we mix all this up into tools and technology that gives us the secret magic sauce of effectuating work and defining work for the future? And that's everything that we need to do. So it is everything, everywhere, all at once, full stop.
Let's say that an organization does decide to move forward with one of these huge transformational initiatives. What are some of the most common pitfalls that happen when they're taking on these types of huge engulfing projects?
Yeah, I'd say it's a couple categories. Number one is purpose. So if we start with the end in mind, is it something we believe will add value, but we don't really have a strong hypothesis? Or is it that we have a particular destination that we've defined as the true north for the organization? The people function's there to amplify and accelerate the achievement to that true north. And we believe there might be a one-to-one connection from trying out this new fad or executing on this new fad as a new vehicle or means of achieving that outcome. And a pitfall sometimes is the fad catches so much fire and so much heat that the desire is to experiment with something before you have a purpose for the outcome. Then we deal with pitfalls of capacity versus capability. So do we have the capacity to take on the experiment, to look into the fad, to thread it into our projects, programs, and initiatives? And do we have the capability internally to even understand how to use the fad, deploy the fad, size the fad, scale the fad, bring it forward in a way that actually brings us insight to determine the applicability to some facet of the business? So we have to have intentionality, we have to have our own people and capacity and capability, and then we have to have a dynamic enough strategy to be able to know that if it works, what will we stop doing? And if it doesn't work, what will we start doing? So everything that I'm talking about is really preparedness. And by virtue of a fad being a fad, oftentimes we don't pause long enough to get out of the whack-a-mole hole of information and intent to look up and say, what is the reason why we would ever consider doing A, B, C, X, Y, or Z?